This podcast is sponsored by nobody. Hey dudes, welcome to Splat from the Past, the only 80s themed horror sci-fi show where things can get totally radical. Now today I will be doing a tribute to a character actor I saw in so many things when I was growing up, and I always liked him. Redmond Gleeson. Oh my god, he was in everything from Chuck Norris's The Octagon to Midway, Annie and Little Britches. He guest starred on one of my favorite episodes of MASH, and he did some Columbo episodes. He was on Cagney and Lacey. He played Sneed, the racetrack bookie gangster, in one of my favorite movies of all time, Dreamscape, celebrating its 40th anniversary, and I am so friggin' excited. I love that movie, and I'm going to be talking to his daughter Daniella today. And Daniella, she comes off so sweet and cool in Messenger, and I think we're going to have a great conversation tonight, and I'm so happy about it and so excited and stuff. As you know, I love my character actors, and I love doing tributes to lots of actors, especially I love character actors the most. And people who are forgotten or underrated in the industry or so forth. I just love chronicling, the person's life and career, because we live in this weird society now where people are starting to forget, and there's a lot of weirdness going on, with new content, being, sent out via the internet and so forth. So it's great to have these kind of conversations, and I'm so excited. It's going to be a great talk. So, yeah, here is my interview with Daniella Gleeson in tribute to her father, Redmond Gleeson. Hey, Daniela, welcome to the show. How are you tonight?
I'm doing all right, thanks. How are you?
I am fabulous. Thank you so much for coming on tonight. This means a lot to me.
Oh, sure. I'm happy to do it. I was just so honored to have someone reach out about my dad and who knew his work and was interested in knowing more.
Absolutely. So, going back in time, your dad was born in Dublin, Ireland. Was he raised there?
He was, yeah. He was born and raised in Ireland, and he left when he was in his 20s, first off to Australia for a bit. And he had actually left his hometown without telling his dad. He kind of said he scarpered in the middle of the night because he was in trouble for doing a little side hustling with the job, but he was working at a department store, and he said he and his buddy were stealing stockings and selling them on the black market, and he got busted, and he didn't want to face the wrath of his
Wow.
father, so he got on a bus, and he went over to Liverpool, and he did passageway all the way to Australia to work on the railroad. They were hiring lots of Irish people to work because they were building out the railway back in the 50s then.
Mm-hmm.
But then it was like a 6 week passageway. And he was meant to work off his passageway, working on the railroad.
Mm-hmm.
And he said he did it for about a week, and he collected his first paycheck, and he scarpered. He said he'd go into the bathroom, and he never went back. Uh, and then he continued to play rugby and be a lifeguard and just drink beer and have lots of fun for a number of years down in Melbourne. And then his father was very connected in the education system. My granddad was the dean of trade schools and business schools in Dublin, so he got my dad a place at a university in Ohio, Miami University of Oxford, Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how he ended up in the States, going to college there in the middle of the Midwest. And he did the whole fraternity thing, and he said he started the first St. Patrick's Day there parade, and now it's a big tradition there in Oxford, Ohio. And from there, he did some radio in Indiana,
Mm-hmm.
and then he ended up in Chicago, where he worked for Vic Tanny's. It was like
A gym?
like a gym.
Yeah. Yeah, I thank God for the...
a masseuse there until he had an affair with the owner's daughter, and he got in trouble for that. So then he had heard about Aspen, Colorado, and that's where he ended up in Aspen. And he'd met my mom, and he was tending bar. This was a small town, and in those days, it was like early '60s. And he was a ski bum. He did ski patrol and tended bar and did plays in Aspen. And he met, Hunter S. Thompson and all sorts of other people who were on the beat circuit and the actors, because the Aspen was kind of really happening back then.
Yeah. That is crazy.
And yeah.
Sounds like he was a load of trouble for a while until he found his way.
Yeah, he was just into finding his way. I think he was really trying to discover himself and who he was, separate from, what he grew up from. He grew up in Ireland in the 30s and 40s. He loved cowboy movies. He idolized watching, Gene Autry and John Wayne films. He would skip the rugby matches that his dad would give him money to go see, and instead go to the movies. And then he would ask what the score was from his friends before he went home, and lied about going to the cinema. But he always had a romance with the movies, and particularly the cowboy movies. And it was always in his blood. But I think he was afraid, because it's a very conservative country. It's come a long ways, but back then, being an actor, it wasn't a very practical career to choose. And he had other plans and other curiosities and wanderlust to explore. So he certainly had a very fascinating and interesting life. There's many stories. I'm sure I only got a fraction of them, being his daughter, because he has the timing being in the 60s, and he traveled the world. He met my mom and a lot of other people that he connected with and stayed with his whole life, particularly this couple in Aspen. There were Charles and Rianti Rand, and they bought a VW bus together with my mom and my dad in Switzerland, and they drove all the way to India. And they have incredible stories of those adventures, and just trading wristwatches for handguns and opium and hash. I mean, it was the 60s, they were wild.
Yeah, it sure sounds like it. But yeah, wasn't there like a point where he played around with the idea of playing rugby professionally?
He did, yeah. I mean, he was really good at it. He did rugby throughout his upbringing there in Ireland, and then he was actually on he played Footscray in Australia, in Melbourne. He was in the paper. He has clippings. I remember finding them as a kid around. But that was, I guess that was part of that adventure in his life then. Because rugby, he lost all his teeth playing rugby. He was always quite athletic and, I guess all into it. And when my granddad got him this place to go to school in the States, he went after it. And he did study physical education, but he also studied theater. And he said he was always interested in the theater and the films, of course. He had a romance with it.
Yeah. And he formed his own...
It wasn't until he got into Aspen and when he started doing plays, he started really pursuing theater more. And then he got a role in a film called The Ski Bum that was filmed there in Aspen. And that was kind of right around 68, and that's when he moved my family. It was before I was born. My mom had 3 sons at that point, and then the fourth was born. Oh no, the third was born in LA in 1968 is when they moved out to Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And he started working at the Troubadour Theater, Troubadour Bar
Oh yeah.
Helped set that up. It was a brand, it was new then. This is the Troubadour, the famous bar with the
Yeah.
music acts.
He probably saw Alice Cooper there when he like completely bombed.
I'm not sure. He definitely saw Janis Joplin, and he saw the Flying Burrito Brothers. He saw Linda Ronstadt, the Ponies. He saw the Flying Burrito Brothers, and
Yeah.
the Mamas and the Papas. He said he partied with Roger Miller, the Byrds. I mean, all of those big acts. Then
Hmm.
he he said they all came through and played. And it was just a big scene there. I mean, it was just a pretty idyllic time to be there, in LA and in Hollywood in that time
Yeah.
and in that scene.
Yeah. And he had his own theater company, the High Country Players in Colorado. Did he have any success while he was there in Colorado?
I think that was part of what got him to get into LA and get into the film business, because he was doing pretty well. He was headlining some plays there, and they were getting some notoriety. And like I said, there were writers and other talent, like Hunter S. Thompson would come through. He was actually living there and running for mayor.
Hmm.
Um, he said Steve Martin had come through. So he had made some connections, and I think that was, part of the beginning of him. It was just a small little ski town then. It was just an old silver mining town, so it was nothing like it became.
Yeah.
He said he bought a house for $6,000 on Main Street in Aspen, and they left 8 years later, and they sold it for $35,000, and I'm sure that property is worth millions now.
Hmm.
So it was his
Absolutely.
introduction in the beginning for him, just getting his career and his going and established. But then, in LA, it was like starting. He got his grip card first. He was working and meeting connections in the bar, and
Hmm.
he became a grip and got into a union then, and
Wow.
quickly worked his way trying to make connections and get on camera, because that was always his goal.
Yeah, he's quoted in saying that it took him 8 years to break through and work steadily on camera as an actor, and he didn't know that there was the relationships part of the business, but he did, he did theater and he won some awards. He won a drama log for Buddy's Girl and Backstage Garland for Kevin's Bed. Did you ever see him perform on stage?
Oh, I did. Yeah, he was a great. It was very different. I think one of the things he loved about theater was that you always had another opportunity to do it again. And you could learn from each performance and tweak it and change it for the next time. That was
Hmm.
one of the things he would say about being on camera. Like, what does he enjoy it? But is like, once it's done, it's done. And when you'd see it, he'd always think of something else he could do differently, or how he could have changed a look or a pause or said a line. Or
Hmm.
so I think theater was his first love for sure. He was really a big James Joyce enthusiast. He had a huge passion and love for Joyce, and he would do a big show every year on Bloomsday. The book Ulysses takes place on one day,
Hmm.
June 16th, and he wrote and produced a show with another Irish writer, Thomas T.S. Kerrigan.
Hmm.
Uh, and they had other Irish actors come, and they would bring the book to life. I don't know if you've ever tried to read Joyce, but it's a lot to digest. And
Yeah.
having seen it on stage, I mean, he really brought it to life, and it was like a whole different experience. And for me, watching my dad on stage was like truly watching someone doing what they were meant to do. It was just, he became what he was performing, and it was just so alive, and it was like it was just you for you. It was really powerful experience for me.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. So what number are you in terms of his children?
I'm the fifth child, so there's 10 of us, but I'm his first daughter.
Hmm.
So I was Pearl of a girl. I was a Pearl of a girl. uh, so I was always known as Pearl. And then I had two brothers after me, and then a sister, and then a brother, and a
Oh,
sister.
You had all those brothers, you poor thing.
I know, really,
Yeah.
truly.
My
I
my dad's
survived some
my,
serious.
my dad's the fifth of six kids. The oldest was his sister, my aunt. She loved having brothers. No, she was a real tomboy. But like I know that sometimes it can be a little bit too much when you come from a big family of mostly boys. You know.
Yeah, and it's just having to be responsible from such a young age because there were so many of us tend to look after us. And, my dad was out always hustling. He had when we moved to LA and we were trying to get, established. My mom was an artist and a homemaker,
Hmm.
and they were hippies. He was buying scripts and working. He had formed a film editing company called the Eagle Eye Film Company, and
Hmm.
so he wasn't around much. So it was just, we were all trying to fend for each other, and so it's a lot of love, but a lot of dysfunction. Just, a lot of, and we're still all close.
Yeah.
We're all spread out, but um, he really, really instilled that family was important and that family came first, and he was always clear about being loving and present in that way. Both my
Yeah.
mom and my dad. I was very fortunate.
Yeah. That's awesome. So let's get into his on-camera credits. He was in one of my favorite episodes of MASH, and I watched it the other night again. It'd been a while and stuff. Did he ever talk about that experience?
Yeah, working. He was like he was stealing a watch or something, right? He was like,
Yeah.
I remember he took us to the set because we could see it, and he showed us, because it was out there in God, the valley somewhere, and a lot of that stuff was still around when we were growing up. Yeah, he had a blast. He had a blast. He was on the Dukes of Hazzard. He was on Mr. Belvedere. I remember going to just different tapings. But MASH was like kind of early on. Um,
Yeah.
and I don't know if he was on that more than once. Was he only on one episode or maybe two?
According to the internet, it's the only one, but you know how inaccurate it is. Maybe he was on again. I can't remember. But yeah, so like, his wife needs an operation, and he tells Farrell about it, and he says it's women's stuff, and Farrell's like, I have a degree in women's stuff. Yeah.
He was good, and he always had a, a kind of shining to the kind of the hustle and the being the grift. You like to
Hmm.
play those kind of characters, even just in play around interacting with people during the day. You could always
Yeah.
just get people to laugh and make a joke, or just you know, it's like mischievous, like the little leprechaun,
Yeah.
little Irishman.
Oh, did he ever play a leprechaun?
Yeah. I don't know if you saw that David Arquette film, The Tripper.
No.
He played a part in that. That was more of a B horror film, and I think that was in, like, I don't know, in the 2000s, 2005 maybe, or
Huh.
I'd have to look it up.
Yeah, I love horror,
But
so like I can't believe I don't know that one.
that was more recent, and it was we grew up with the Arquettes as they were all family friends. We were all in a spiritual group together, so we kind of had this big community of people, and in Los Angeles, there were a lot of
Yeah.
people who were in the business, so we were very close with that family. And David asked him to play this role in his movie called The Tripper. I highly recommend it. It's a good time.
Okay. Yeah.
It has Paul Rubens in it. It has Courtney Cox in it. It has a lot of his friends and
Yeah, I saw the
not to say part of
picture.
his family.
I saw the picture of you and Paul. I met him in 2019, and it was one of the biggest blessings of my life. I met him at a horror con he was in LA, and I spent 2 hours and 30 minutes in line, and it was well worth it.
Oh, cool. Yeah, he was such a kind person. Just patient and kind and genuine. I was so nervous. I was such a fan, and I was just so kind of like uh, embarrassed and uncomfortable and shy. And he was just very gracious. I was so impressed
Yeah,
with
I
who he was. Yeah.
still can't believe he's gone. He formed my love of comedy early on. It all started with Pee Wee with me.
Oh yeah, I've always been a huge fan. He was such a great actor, comedian. Yeah, just that sense of humor and the the sets and all the brightness and the colors and the childishness of his and wonder. It was so great.
Yeah. Did your dad like working with Peter Falk on the Columbo episodes?
Yes, he did. He really did, and I think it was just, like he was a small town Irish kid, and so he just felt like anytime he got to be these big players, it was he'd pretend like you, and it was like this work, but like I knew he was very much charmed and excited, and in awe of the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
Same with like with oh, what was the
The
he played
Catalanian.
like an IRA guy. Was it Cary Grant? Lou Grant.
Lou Grant, yeah.
He was on a Lou Grant episode. Really just meeting those guys. Even working with Dennis Quaid, I was like, Dad, I was such a fan of Dennis Quaid from
Dreamscape.
Inner Space when I was a kid, and I asked him what it was like to work with him on Dreamscape, and he's like, oh, he's a pro. He just kind of pretended like it was like no big deal, but you could tell like it was a big deal to him.
Yeah. Oh,
He enjoyed it all.
we gotta talk about Dreamscape because it's one of my favorite movies of all time. I mean, your dad took a two-scene small role and made it huge, playing Sneed, the racetrack mobster bookie character, and he comes off as menacing at first, and then we see him be a little comedic later, and stuff. And I just love it. Like Quaid comes back to the racetrack, and he's like, "I'll give you 2-1 odds if you help me, right?" And then him and the other guys are on the horses, and they're like, "Go away! You're scaring the horses."
and he barters with him. He says, "I'll give you 3." And he's like, "No, give me 6."
Right.
And he's fighting for his escape, and he's still trying to get more out of him what he can. It's like again, yeah, that he tried to really take the scene as any time he could. I don't know. I feel like maybe you'll go back and watch like scenes from the Octagon. Like he had this
Yeah.
trademark where he would grab his nose and rub it, and he would kind of pause in front of
Yeah.
the screen, or cheat to his left or his right. Just to the same on Steel. He did that same trademark where he just would pause as he's crossing frame and take his nose and rub it and just do his thing.
Yeah, speaking of Steel, he did a couple movies with Steve Carver, and I interviewed Steve a month before he passed, and I think Steve knew he was going to pass. He said to me on the phone the week before, "Can we talk a lot about my photography book, and then we'll talk whatever you want about the movies?" And I said, "Sure," and we did, and then he passed away like a month later. It was really, really ominous. I have to tell you.
Yeah.
Yeah, was him and your dad close?
I don't really remember much about him so much. I mean, I'm sure they had a great working relationship. My dad made friends really easily. He was a really kind and sincere person, and
Mm-hmm.
he's funny and just very likable. He got really close with Burt Lancaster and
Yeah,
Buck Taylor, and God, there was a Timothy Carey. He's another character actor
yeah,
from that era. Um, just really long-lasting friendships. He also knew Gardner McKay, was a writer who he worked with. Um, just like over the years, I don't that like but with Catalani and Little Britches, that was an era and a time where and I guess some of those people on Steel too. They worked on those locations and worked long hours and really just bonded. Um, and it was really kind of
mm-hmm.
maybe more because they were like this really masculine sets and crews, and like with the cowboy movie. I mean, that was my dad's dream. He had to work with Burt Lancaster, with one of his idols, but he
Yeah,
also got to be in a cowboy film which he idolized since he was a kid. And there's actually a funny story where he lied and said he knew how to ride a horse to get the job. And
mm-hmm.
when they were doing this opening shot, they were like first day. They're like, okay, we're gonna have you get on the horse, and we're gonna just have you like ride across the scene here, the landscape, this opening shot. And he'd never ridden a horse in his life, and so he he got on, and I think one of the handlers, they were down in Mexico, Durango, Mexico, and
Yeah.
one of the handlers kind of copped on, and he didn't know how to ride, so he gave the horse a good whack on the arse and took off, and my dad was hunched over like a jockey and just riding, really holding on for his life, and the director was like, cut, 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 what's this? You said you could ride a horse, and he said, I did, but and I can. This is how we do it in Ireland. And my character's originally from Ireland, and he just
Yeah.
he explained it all into his whole character, and it worked. And they said, "Oh, okay, let's it's like method acting. He's doing it right." So
Yeah, it's great that he got to become fast friends with Lancaster because nobody became fast friends with Lancaster. He was usually one of those guys you had to work hard for his approval and get to know him and stuff. But that's great that your dad got in like right away.
oh, I didn't know that. No, he was a lovely man, and he actually asked Lancaster to be the godfather of my sister, who was born
Wow.
shortly after the film wrapped, and he was honored to. He came to her christening, and I remember he came to some of Dad's plays. They shared, I think, a love for the Irish literature, and my dad had a way with words and just really, and just I think he loved to talk about the work, and I
Hmm.
think they really connected on that uh, in that way. He was a lovely man. He was around. I remember growing up, I felt. I was jealous because my sister got to have Burt Lancaster as her godfather,
Yeah.
and she got swim lessons from the, the guy who trained Burt Lancaster in the swimmer,
Mhm.
which is the kid I was it was highly unfair, and I tried to tag along as much as I could. But wow, that makes me even more impressed with my dad and his charm and his ability to win people over.
Well, technically, he is kind of your godfather because it's kind of a family thing in a way. Like my mom, she has a goddaughter. She has a goddaughter, and I consider her sisters like my god sisters too.
Mm,
That kind of thing.
yeah, that's
But
awesome.
yeah, but Rod Steiger was also in that. I've heard people say that Steiger could be a pain in the ass, but did he get along with your dad?
I think they got along, and and I'm sure my dad just razzed him a bit to kind of give, they just
Yeah.
worked around it, because he wouldn't kind of play those games and he wouldn't hold grudges or try to get into, any more tension. He just, uh, he wouldn't take it if it was given to him. But like, I never heard any negative stories about
Okay.
Steiger. But
Yeah.
I am the first girl, so sometimes I do feel like I was a little sheltered. Maybe my brothers heard more of the raw masculine stuff that was maybe not appropriate for me to hear, or so my dad thought. I don't know.
Yeah.
There was a lot of partying. I remember we all got to go down and be extras in the film, and I
Hmm.
remember we got to hang out in Durango, Mexico for a few weeks, uh, and I just remember them. It was what 1979. So there was a lot of drinking, a lot of I'm sure there was cocaine. I'm sure it was those days. Not that my dad was a part of that, but that was
Yeah.
what was going on in those sets.
He had to have had a good time on Midway because he's working with all these iconic movie stars. Henry Fonda, Charlton Heston, Glenn Ford, Robert Mitchum, Cliff Robertson, Toshiro Mifune. I mean, that is just a mind-boggling cast for that time.
Huge, yeah. That was what year was that?
76.
76. But then after that, he did that show, Damnation Alley. Did you see that one?
Oh, it doesn't say it on his IMDb or anything, but yes, with George Peppard and Jan Michael Vincent.
Yeah, so he had a role in that. He just you know, there were he'd say Damnation Alley. He was like an expletive, and then he'd see like I was in that movie.
Yeah.
That's just true. And there was one of the vehicles that there were those odd shaped vehicles that they were driving through the end of the world, around, and
Yeah.
there was one stationed right near the 101 freeway near Burbank as you're going into Hollywood, and we'd always see it. He'd point that out. It's like that was from the movie I was in,
Hmm.
Damnation Alley. It's no longer there, but it was just like it was a landmark forever. Um,
Uh, yeah,
yeah,
Jack's my
he.
he directed Midway and Damnation Alley.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. So then maybe he worked with him again.
Yeah. He was in a lot of TV movie remakes of classic films like Captain's Courageous and True Grit, which must have been a pilot spin-off because True Grit was still relatively new at that time, and Warren Oates played Rooster Cogburn.
Oh, that's right. I remember him saying he worked with Warren Oates.
Yeah.
He said he loved the sauce.
Yeah, I can't tell you how often I saw the Octagon though when I was a kid. Like TBS Superstation would have these Chuck Norris marathons on Friday nights, and they would show the early Chuck Norris movies, like from the first few years, and this was one of them that would be on all the time. And I interviewed Art Hindle, who was also in the movie.
Oh, really? Yeah, I remember we got to go to the screening event. I got to meet Chuck Norris, um, and then I was not happy. I was so scared because the scene when my dad got shot with a bow and arrow,
Yeah.
and I remember I had to hide my eyes behind my dad. It was still like so horrifying, even though he was sitting next to me.
Hmm.
But Chuck Norris was very nice, and he shook my hand, and we got his autograph. That was fun. He had a lot of fun on that one. I mean, I don't know. He never did any martial arts. I don't know. He just was good at just act,
Yeah.
talking the talk. I don't know. And he did this. You'll see the scenes of him rubbing his nose, and I guarantee you'll rewatch it. You'll see him taking his paws and doing his signature thing. To
Yeah.
the same in Rumor of War. Did you see that with Brian Dennehy?
What's it called?
Rumor of War.
Rumor of War. Oh yeah, that was a TV movie. Yeah.
Yeah,
I,
he did a lot of TV. Wanted the Sundance Woman. He was in that. He did have a lot of TV movies of the week.
Yeah, Brad
Uh,
Davis and Keith Carradine were also in the Rumor of War, and Michael O'Keefe and Stacy Keach. That's a great cast.
yeah, he had a great time, and there's a great scene that I'll forward you. There's a YouTube clip that one of my siblings put together, just of some of his sayings and some of the clips of his films. Um, and he has that one. He plays an Australian, soldier, and he's got a. They're playing poker, and one of the things he's gambling is a pair of ears, and he's got them on a knife. It's really really grim, but it's
Going back
funny.
to Dreamscape for a moment, yeah. Also, too, when he first chases Quaid in the beginning, and he gets the bag, and he finds the toilet paper, and his reaction is so hilarious. It just Quaid in the taxi cab driving by, and he's all ah, classic. It's classic.
Yeah, I'm sure he improvised a lot of that. He was really good at just being quick on his feet and just doing the improvising.
Yeah,
It's fun. And then
you weren't on set with him on that one, were you up in Stockton?
no,
Uh,
unfortunately, no. I think it was there were so many of us. Of course, we would all beg to go along to be part of them, but
mhm.
um, when we got to be part of the Catalan Little Britches, and my oldest brother, he got to be on the set of Steel, which was when with the you know um,
Oh, Lee
what's the
Majors.
main character? Lee Major. Thank you. Yes, I have his if I can glossy autographs and everything. But yeah, no, my brother Reynard got to be on that set and like be part of. He got to do one of the jumps onto the airbag. We were all very jealous.
Yeah.
That was actually he was there when that stuntman passed away because he was breaking the world record
Wow.
for highest jump, and I don't think the airbag popped. Kind of like had never happened on a film before. But they were in Lexington, Kentucky, and I kind of took over that city. But it was a
Wow.
big deal.
I
And there's
saw.
a lot of big stars in that too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The cast of
Art Carney's in there, and George Kennedy, and R.G. Armstrong, Terry Kaiser, who I've met, sweet guy. Roger Mosley from Magnum PI. Yeah, it's a good cast.
you've met a lot of people. You've really you've gotten around.
I have.
You know your stuff.
Yeah.
Very impressive.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, he was also in Hollywood Harry. Was he friends with Robert Forster?
I think just working friends.
Hmm.
Yeah. But I think he was proud of all these accomplished actors he got to work with, and um, you know, make connections where he could.
Yeah, I saw him on an episode of Cagney and Lacey recently. He played one of John Carlin's friends at a funeral, along with Bill Henderson, and Conchata Ferrell was in that episode too.
I'll have to look that up. I don't know that one.
Yeah,
It's hard to get a hold of some of these shows or these films or these episodes. I'd love to watch them again, but I wouldn't know where to look or find them. I don't know if they're archived.
they're on YouTube,
Uh,
you know, and
Good to know. There's some places around like still that have like up here in Portland, Oregon. There's a place called Movie Madness, and they have an enormous collection of films and television shows and things. So it's just digging through and going. It's a remarkable place. I Wanted the Sundance Woman. I'd like to watch that one because that was another TV movie of the week. It was like a sequel to the Robert Redford and Paul Newman Western,
hmm
Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid.
yeah, and
I had a hard time finding it.
he was in the pilot for George Burns' Comedy Week. That's a bizarre credit to have.
Oh, I don't know about that one.
Yeah, it was a short-lived show that George Burns had, and it said that he was in it and stuff. Um,
I think yeah, was that like in the 70s as well? Kind of like,
no, 85.
oh, okay. 75. He was, a lot of work was happening, but he was trying to build his in the 70s, and he was also building this film editing business with his partner.
Hmm.
They rented out editing machines when before the days of computers. They had these Chem and Steenbeck machines where they'd rent, edit the films on these editing beds, and
Hmm.
there was a lot of hustle. And he was also trying to option scripts, and he met, um, um, Charlie Bukowski trying to get one of his scripts. They were trying to get things made. They did a documentary called Whiskey Papa about the pilots up there in Alaska,
Hmm.
landing in the snow, in the North Pole rather. Um, uh, so imagine just there's so much going on trying to get that side of his career started, but also on camera stuff. And as he was saying, he was always just tap dancing through the minefields of life.
I love that. Did he ever talk about working with John Huston on his last movie?
Oh, that was definitely a dream come true. Yeah, he was. I mean, a lot of his role got cut out, but I
Oh.
mean, that was just, and it was in a Joyce film. It was a Joyce story. James
Hmm.
Joyce, The Dead. Um, that was something he was very proud of, and just it was a dream come true. And also, the other thing, he worked with Steve McQueen on Tom Horn, and he said he was the only person to ever kill Steve McQueen, even though he didn't kill him. He just designed a contraption to hang him in the film, but it was one of his pride and joys. To,
I'm a huge
to
Humphrey Bogart fan, so like I think Houston's best movies were with him. I think
mm,
as Houston got older, he became overly ambitious, and he lost interest in a lot of his movies that he made. He became famous for that, but he had some gems here and there after Bogart. But like to me, his best work was with Bogart.
oh yeah, do you have a favorite film of his that stands out?
Probably Treasure of the Sierra Madre.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's a classic.
Hmm.
What an incredible career.
Yeah, Key
Long
Largo,
lasting, just
Maltese
short.
Falcon, um, even Moby Dick. Even though that one's flawed, it's still good.
Right.
The
Yeah, that's
1982 Annie movie was great.
Oh God, that was one of my favorites as a kid. I definitely, still to this day, it's one of my favorites. That soundtrack alone.
I know some people didn't like it and said that they didn't get it right. I think they got it just fine. I think, people expect film versions of Broadway the plays to be exactly like the play, and it's just impossible because when you're doing it on stage, you only have so much room and so much visual, that when you see it on screen in the actual, settings of where it takes place, you expect it to be much more elaborate and better than it is. I was like, no, this is exactly how it needs to be, you know.
Right, and it's bringing you into the scenes and into the story instead of you just being like two dimensional. With the sets, it's like there's more to explore. It's just a different medium.
Hmm.
So I think it was wonderful. I thought it was really well done,
I
and it
totally,
holds up. I think over time.
I totally agree. I didn't see the Jamie Foxx remake and stuff, but I heard it was pretty bad.
Oh yeah, no, I haven't seen it either.
So I'm curious, why did your parents move to Indonesia of all places?
Oh well, they were just had like a part time home there, so they were there part time. They're into a very spiritual life. They had a spiritual group
Hmm.
called Subud that was a big part of their lives, and it's a non-denominational, just a spiritual movement to your own experience with a higher power. It's not there's no religion or affiliation. It's completely your own experience, and it's not a cult. There are a lot of people like if you look online, there'll be some bad write-ups on it, but it's completely a direct connection to a higher power that's your own experience, and nobody
Hmm.
tells you otherwise. And they just had been in it for many years. In the '60s they discovered it, and it originated in Indonesia in the '20s, um, and so they had spent time over the years traveling there, and they were able to buy some property for it's so affordable. And raising 10 children in Los Angeles on an actor and an artist budget was not easy. Sometimes we're lean, and living there you can afford a home and someone to cook and clean and have drivers, and just a very different lifestyle. So
Yeah.
there was a community. It was kind of like an expat community that they had a house and um, had a comfortable life there for a number of years.
Hmm.
So it was always just kind of part time. So it was like kind of 6 months on, 6 months off. It's way too hot for me, too humid, and um, but it was nice and quiet and slow. And where they were living had a school, so my dad loved, you know, teaching theater to the kids, um, and my mom loved, you know, working in her garden. So you could just live very, very affordably and have
Hmm.
a nice, quiet life. It's just so far away. So
Did
yeah,
did
it's
he
just kind
ever?
of a part of the world. And for where they were in Borneo, it's kind of a
Hmm.
place that's really. I mean, I haven't been since 2010, but it's one of the last developed places in the world. So it's really, very raw jungle, and just the culture was very
Yeah.
much more intact as far as being influenced by Western, you know,
That did
media and everything.
did he
So
become
it's kind of boring, but
Did he become disillusioned with LA once, the traffic and the overpopulation started?
I think LA was always like a love and hate relationship. It's a hard place to live, but it's necessary when you're working in that industry. So you know, we you grew up in a beautiful old California craftsman house that it's still in my family. So we we had a lot of people who we loved and our community around us, but just the crime and the crowdedness and the traffic and the pollution, and nothing's easy there.
Hmm.
It's a struggle. So I think my dad always would dream of like living in the north coast of California, like in Mendocino, if he could have his way, or by the
Hmm.
ocean, or in the redwoods.
Yeah.
And my mom hated the cold, so Indonesia was kind of the compromise, I guess. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think it was just, yeah, necessity. I mean, to me, I mean, I love going back to visit, but I don't think I could ever live there again. I moved away in 2005,
Mm-hmm.
and I have family down there still. It's fun to visit, but it's a hard place to live. And I did work in the film industry as a camera assistant for a while and tried to make my way into that. And I think you just have to really, really want it and be hungry for that industry to make it work. And it's a hustle.
I did for my whole life. I
Right.
wanted to live out in LA, and then after visiting it many times, um, in the beginning of starting this podcast and everything, and then COVID happening and all the craziness over there, I'm just like, no, I love
Mm-hmm.
visiting there, but I just don't want to live there. You know?
Yeah, I'm with you. It's fun to visit, and then I think that's good enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got a lot going for it, but it's just too many people, too crowded,
Hmm.
and this the complete divide between the wealth and the poverty is so big. There's not much in between. So you
Yeah.
really feel it. I see it there when I go visit.
Yeah. So because your dad was Irish, did he swear a lot?
Yeah, he did. And it was creative swearing too. I mean, he had just a different way of saying things. So this, you know, I'll rip off your head.
Yeah. Yeah.
You say some scary stuff. Ripped off your head and I'll shit down your neck. Like this, something like that. Like this scary stuff. I just don't think he's like being funny, but it's just the Irish kind of playful word on words.
Hmm. My
And
my dad's
he
mom
was
was,
also very charming.
yeah,
Yeah, go on.
my mom's dad was Irish, and she never swore whenever I was around, but he told me when he was growing up she invented new curse words.
Ah, yeah, it's just interesting. There's a podcast I like to listen to called the Blind Boy Podcast, and it's an Irish guy at a Limerick, and
Hmm.
he did, the way he swears is more creative and artful, but it's not even offensive. It's just kind of like it just flows in with the sentences.
Like George
So,
Carlin.
oh yeah,
It's like it's like Irish guys like him who are creative. They just know how to make like swearing non-offensive.
right. It's a talent, isn't it?
Yeah, the Irish are very good at it.
They're good with their words. Yeah, it's wordplay.
So when he passed, was it expected?
Yeah. So unfortunately, Dad started to kind of show signs of dementia. The last
Hmm.
uh, like 10 years. Slowly onset, and then and then our mom got sick, and he was
Oh.
so devoted to her. I mean, it was a true love affair. He just doted on her and adored her, and just would write her poetry, and you know they have a very deep, loving relationship. They, a lot of pain and hardship growing up, and we lost our oldest brother in 1988, but they weathered some storms, and they just were always very close and deeply bonded to one another. And she got lung cancer and passed away in 2017, and we
Oh.
really saw the decline of his dementia uh, kind of ramp up. And so, um, he was speaking more Gaelic. Interestingly enough, I never knew that he spoke so much Gaelic. I didn't know he knew the language really
Hmm.
growing up until I would hear him occasionally speak it to a priest at mass, and then you know he said, "Oh, I just we learned it in school. We had to speak it in school, but I didn't think you guys would ever be interested in learning it." And then more and more of it was coming back as his dementia was kind of progressing, and then
Hmm.
and memories of his childhood, and this kind of lived in the past. But then it just eventually, right when COVID was kind of really starting to kind of ramp up, and he was done. He passed, and we were all there with him, and he was a remarkable man. He was an ultra marathoner from the days that when they weren't doing ultra marathons. He was running 100-mile races in the early '80s, 50-mile races. Just going long distance, running 24 hours throughout the night.
Mm-hmm.
He traveled to Pikes Peak in Colorado. I mean, all these really tough races, and while raising, 10 kids and trying to work in the film industry. He was just an unusual person, and always very optimistic, very kind, very funny, a sharp wit, and I feel very fortunate to have had him as my dad. He was my hero.
Yeah. Did he not want you and your siblings to go into acting?
I think he was cautious, because we did some commercials. We did commercial work as a family. My brother Patrick, he was in Flatliners. He had some work. He did some voiceover work for there was a movie it was like an IRA movie. If you look up Patrick Gleeson, you can probably find out. And my dad and Patrick and my brother Brian
Mm-hmm.
did dub work for that. I can't remember the name of the film at the moment. My other brother Brian was in A League of Their Own.
Oh.
He had some on-camera work, did a lot of commercials and print work.
I've talked to a lot of people from that movie.
What's that?
I've talked to a lot of people from A League of Their Own.
Oh, is that right? Yeah.
Yeah, I love that movie.
Brian played. It was a great film, wasn't it? He played in the opening shot. He played Gina Davis's grandson playing basketball.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
He was a little blonde kid.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So he probably worked the most, but I think my dad, just having known that there'd be so much, it was just such a risky business and a lot of rejection. He was kind of protective of us. That's what I noticed, because I think all of us were interested and keen on it, just having him being in it, and it was exciting. But he wasn't super pro. Like he would support us if we really, really wanted it, but he was always very kind of trepidatious, I noticed.
Yeah. So.
And it was his thing.
Mm-hmm. So where did Redmond come from? Because he was born Martin.
So yeah, and he was born Martin Gleeson. Redmond, he changed his name when he joined Subu. It's an option. You can change your name.
Yeah.
To find a name that suits your true nature, your inner nature. And so he wrote away. There was the person who started Subu was alive then, and I think he asked for a new name, and he got Redmond. He asked for an initial, and he got R, and then he chose 5 names, and from those 5 names, Redmond was chosen.
Interesting.
Yeah. My mother was originally Penelope, and then she became Melissa, and then she felt that that name didn't suit her anymore. She didn't identify with the name, so she asked for a new name, and she got Mardia. So I don't know if you know Hamilton Camp. He's another character actor.
Yes. Oh, he did 2 of my favorite things in 1984. He's the colonel in Meatballs Part 2, and he's the mechanic in City Heat. I gotta go to the bathroom. Pee your pants. I did that.
Well, he was a dear, dear friend of my dad's, and he was a member of Subu as well. He was Hamid. Yeah. So Hamilton maybe was his camera name, but Hamid was his Subu name. And the same with Louis Arquette. Louis Arquette was Mercelin. And there was also Lorenzo Music, who was the
Garfield.
On Garfield, yeah, he was the voice of Garfield. Lorenzo Music. He was Carlton the doorman on Rhoda.
Mm-hmm.
Or he worked with oh my goodness. He had that. You have to look up his IMDb.
Yeah.
Lorenzo Music these were the big people in my life growing up. They were in our community, and then they're dear friends of my father's, and they all worked together. And,
did your dad know Art Matrano?
I don't know. I wish, he probably.
him
The scene wasn't that very big back then, so it was just more close knit. So
Yeah, him and Lorenzo Music and John Amos from Good Times, they were like on the radio doing like an improv thing before Firesign Theater existed, and they could have been Firesign Theater if they all banded together, but they ended up, going off into their own career directions and stuff. But yeah, that just came to mind. And Art Maturano, yeah, he's from your dad's generation. He was one of those character actors that did a lot of comedy, and he was around.
yeah, I mean, it was always so fun as a kid or just in whenever when they'd get together because they would just all riff off of one another and just crack each other up, and it was just unscripted, it was just improv, right? Impromptu would just happen, and they would just crack each other up, and the same with Hamid Hamilton, Camp. He just with words and literature, they both loved Yeats and those old Irish poets. They would recite things to one another,
Yeah,
and I loved asking Mercelin or Lewis stories because he grew up in L.A. and he knew all those people because his dad was in this industry, Cliff Arquette. So he'd tell
yeah,
us some amazing stories about,
yeah, yeah,
growing up in LA and having, met James Dean and worked, with Natalie Wood and all these people. They went to high school together, and same with Hamilton Camp. And
being down
I just
from the
love those
Bay.
kind of stories.
Being down from the Bay Area, I know that Hamilton Camp wrote the song "Pride of Man," which Quicksilver Messenger Service covered.
Yeah, that's right. And
Yes.
it's a great, great song. He's a great folk singer. Him and he had a was it Gibson and Camp.
Mm-hmm.
That was like the Pride of Man. There was a Pride of Horn. In Chicago. They started out before they moved to LA.
Oh yeah.
Um, yeah, he played a lot of music, and he still did throughout his whole life.
Yeah.
And we're close still with all his kids were our friends, and I feel like they're all part of my extended family, my cousins, the Arquette kids, the Camp kids, the
Mm-hmm.
music. They were, we all grew up together. Since our fathers were in the industry, and also, our moms were all friends, and they were all involved in the spiritual group of Subud, and I feel very fortunate. I'm connected with them today.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Rosanna Arquette. Huge fan. Um, um,
Yeah, she used to babysit me. She was lovely.
Desperately Seeking Susan to me should be in the Library of Congress. It's one of the best movies ever made.
It's a really great film. I really agree, and I loved the Big Blue she did with the diver. I don't know the name of the actor, but the guy who was in The Professional. These things. He played Enzo in her film The Big Blue.
Big Blue. I think I know that
That,
one. But
yeah,
like,
same era.
but yeah, I mean, After Hours, she was great in. I know she didn't have a good time working with Van Damme, but I love Nowhere to Run.
Oh, what's the one with Dunn with the Midnight?
That's
What
After
was that
Hours.
called? After Hours. That's it. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a famous.
yeah. She was even in
Yeah, she.
Silverado.
Oh wow, that's right. She had a great run, and then she kind of fell out of the limelight.
Yeah.
Patricia's been doing really well. That's really wonderful. I'm really happy for her.
Hmm. But you do hairdressing and you make jewelry.
I'm a hairdresser, and I have also been teaching. Um, so I have my own business doing hairdressing, and then I've been working at a high school, kind of following the steps of my granddad. It's a trade school, so I'm teaching kids how to run their own business,
Oh, okay.
and we have a little store in the high school. It's a trade school.
Hmm.
I live in Portland, Oregon, and so it's like a lab, right? We have an actual store, and I'm teaching the kids how to, you know, run a shop and customer service, and
Yeah.
what things cost and how to price things and things like that. So that's a kind of the steady gig.
Mm-hmm.
I growing up with so much uncertainty in my life, and
Mm-hmm.
this I needed something that was going to be more solid. Then I can
Yeah.
still do my creative endeavors on the side and not have to worry about health insurance and retirement and all that kind of thing, you know.
Oh
So
yeah.
it's a balance.
Because I
It's
saw
both, and
those.
and I love digging with people, you know. It's a balance.
Oh yeah. I saw those pearls, and I was like, she had to have made those. Like, she must be a jewelry maker.
I got a lot of beads. My mom was very creative. I got a lot of my creativity from my mom. She's she's very crafty, and she had a very big business with hand painting clothes, and she had a shop off of Melrose in Hollywood, and
Mm-hmm.
Axl Rose bought some of her things, and River Phoenix bought some of her things, and she had some success with her hand painted clothing business.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but again, you know, as an artist, it's kind of feast or famine, you know. So
Yeah. Yeah. That's
nice when
cool
you can
though that
have
you're.
this.
That's cool though that you're teaching. I mean, this is a really strange time in the world and the educational system and stuff. But hey, if you enjoy it, you can make it work. That's awesome.
Yeah, and I just, you know, I think it's important to connect with people, and especially this age where these are the kids that are going to be out into the world next, right? And
Yeah.
having them prepared and having some skills that will actually give them something to start off with, as opposed to just plopped out, you know, with nothing, no skills and not knowing what to do. It only having benefits just our community and as a whole, right? And just
Hmm.
the functioning of our society, and just making people feel seen and that they all deserve to have a chance
Yeah.
to get a good start, you know.
Hmm.
And I learned from them, and I like that it's every walks of life, because it's the where the high school I work at is, it buses in the kids from all the different high schools in our district, so you get a real cross section of different, you know, socioeconomic and cultural backgrounds. So I really appreciate that. I think it's important that we all get to kind of interact and know that we're all the same, and, you know, even despite our differences, that man, we can all get along and work together.
Oh, c'est la vie. C'est la vie. Well,
But
Daniela, I thank you so much for coming on tonight and helping preserve your dad's memory. And I hope it was as fun for you as it was for me.
I had a blast. I love my dad, and you know, I just would ask him all the stories and hear all the stories, and just I'm so glad I got to share some of them, and that I was so honored that you reached out and that you know my dad and um, knew his work, and I'm just so impressed with your knowledge and your um, God, it's expansive. You sound like an encyclopedia. You have like a pop culture
Yeah,
kind of book.
my mom works for the cable company. You can blame her for this conversation.
Uh, we watched a lot of cable growing up. That was fun, and we had like our Laserdisc player. We thought we were pretty cool before our Betamax.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely. And then just watching films at on repeat on the on television. Um, so it's cool because, like, you know, I love when I hear and come across with people who know these things too, and know them. Like your knowledge is so deep. You have so much depth. It's
Thank
so
you.
impressive and exciting because it just gives me more appreciation for all of it, uh, and that it's still not lost. It's very much alive, and that's the gift. And I'm grateful to have talked to you tonight and to hear your excitement and to yeah, and to celebrate my dad. He was my greatest hero. He was quite a person. So
Oh,
I thank you very much for reaching out
of
and talking with me tonight.
of course, he's very much alive, and I hope you and the rest of the family have a happy holiday season, and just be safe out there.
Thank you. You too. You look after yourself. God
Thank you.
bless.
Thank you so much. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Well, there you have it. Daniella Gleeson, ain't she a sweetheart? Oh my God, what a wonderful conversation we had, and she's such a sweet lady and loves her father a lot. Wow, I didn't know that about the Arquettes. That's awesome that she's very close to that family. I'm so glad to find that out and find out everything else about her dad. I really enjoyed it. Well, until next time, this is Tommy Throwback Kovac saying there's no shame in living in the past because the present sucks. Later, dudes.